Witnesses say his final words were that his death amounted to murder by the state and that it would not bring back anyone.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at 10 serial killers who were executed.
As witnesses walked out of the prison to signal Bundy's death, the crowd outside cheered.
For this list, we'll be considering the most infamous serial killers who were convicted for their crimes and put to death by the state. Which of these bloodthirsty individuals still makes your skin crawl? Let us know in the comments. Albert Fish.
Fish could have easily passed for someone's grandfather, but this was not your average grandfather.
During his killing spree in the early 20th century, Albert Fish went by many nicknames, including the Brooklyn Vampire, the Gray Man, and the Werewolf of Wisteria.
Fish is regarded by many aficionados of crime as the scariest and most deranged of all American serial killers. Partly I think it was because he seemed so benign.
Fish targeted very young victims, some of them intellectually disabled, sexually assaulting, maiming, killing, and even consuming them. He was believed to have been involved in at least 5 murders, but was only tried for the death of a young girl named Grace Budd. At his trial, Fish mounted an insanity defense, claiming to have been called upon by God to commit the murders. He was, however, found guilty and put to death by electric chair on January 16, 1936.
Those psychiatrists who testified for the prosecution that he was sane were correct, and I think that they were able to support their findings with Fish's own behavior that shows pre-planning, clarity of thinking, and a real awareness that this was something that was illegal and wrong.
Joseph Mad Dog Taborski. The Mad Dog killings refer to a robbery and murdering spree in 1950s Connecticut that was carried out by Joseph Taborski and Arthur Colomb. As a result, 6 people lost their lives, and a few others were left seriously injured. Being the mastermind of the crimes, Taborski was convicted and sentenced to capital punishment. But this wouldn't be his first time on death row. Taborski had previously been found guilty of the 1950 murder of Louis Wolfson, but after the only witness at his trial was institutionalized, he successfully appealed his conviction and was set free. This time, though, he was sent to the electric chair, where he met his end at the age of 36.
His last meal, a banana split, a cherry cola, and a cup of coffee.
Kenneth McDuff. Just like Joseph Taborski, Kenneth McDuff also sat on death row twice for separate crimes. His first was in 1968, when he was convicted for the murders of Edna Sullivan, her boyfriend Robert Brand, and his cousin Mark Dunham.
He got his thrills from causing pain and causing terror. Women were less than human to him. They were something to be used and used up, as he said.
After the U.S. Supreme Court invalidated the death penalty in 1972, McDuff's sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. Years later, he was granted parole and proceeded to kill again upon his release.
I was absolutely flabbergasted when I heard they'd parole that man, because I knew that he wasn't going to quit.
McDuff was responsible for at least 6 more murders before he was apprehended again, but that number is suspected to be much higher. In 1992, he was found guilty of capital murder in the state of Texas and executed by lethal injection 6 years later.
His last words were, "Release me." And that summarizes the murderous life of Kenneth Allan McDuff. To the very end, he considered himself the victim. He considered himself the object of oppression.
Harvey Glattman. The crimes of Harvey Glattman began when he was a teenager, stalking women and breaking into their apartments. After serving a prison stint for kidnap and assault, Glattman moved to Los Angeles and started posing as a photographer. Under this guise, he lured models back to his apartment, where he would assault them before taking their lives. Glattman was in the process of abducting his intended 4th known victim when he was caught by a police officer and taken into custody. He was convicted of 2 killings and executed in the San Quentin State Prison gas chamber in 1959. Glattman notably refused to appeal his death sentence and reportedly asked that nothing be done to save his life. Westley Allan Dodd.
People need to know it's the only thing that will stop me. It's necessary. It has to be done.
On November 13, 1989, Westley Allan Dodd was arrested after a failed attempt to kidnap a young boy from the restroom of a movie theater. That put an end to a string of crimes directed at children that he had committed in the preceding months.
He said he had hoped to kill many more.
After he confessed to 3 murders, police found his diary, which revealed even more grisly details about the crimes. Dodd was handed a death sentence and chose to be executed by hanging. This decision was met with both support and criticism from the public. Regardless, Dodd was hanged on January 5, 1993, in the same manner as his last victim.
And I know that's the only way I can guarantee I'm not going to hurt anybody else.
Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck.
He kills for me. That's how much he loves me.
Dubbed the Lonely Hearts Killers, Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck were an American couple who targeted their victims through Lonely Hearts ads. The two first met through one of such ads, after which Beck moved from Florida to join Fernandez in New York. To gain the trust of their unsuspecting victims, they posed as brother and sister and succeeded in luring multiple women to their house. Although their victim count is believed to be up to 20, they were reliably linked to only 3 murders and convicted of 1. For the death of 66-year-old Janet Fay, the killer couple paid the ultimate price in the electric chair in Sing Sing Prison, New York. Amelia Dyer. Amelia Dyer was a British nurse who is believed to have murdered hundreds of children in the 19th century. Dyer had gone into baby farming, the Victorian-era practice of taking in unwanted infants from single mothers for a fee. She eventually began murdering the babies in her care and disposing of their bodies.
Amelia Dyer was a murderer, and she knew what she was doing. This was a calculated career plan that she'd embarked on and sustained over 30 years, come what may.
When one of the corpses was found in the River Thames in March of 1896, it was traced back to Dyer, leading to her arrest and a highly sensational trial. Dyer was found guilty in less than 5 minutes of jury deliberations and executed by hanging on June 10, 1896. Her last words, "I have nothing to say."
Her death closed a casebook on one of the most deadly serial killer cases in British history.
John Wayne Gacy.
He is the most notorious serial murderer ever. No one can hold a candle to John Gacy.
Throughout the 70s, John Wayne Gacy owned a successful construction business while moonlighting as a children's entertainer. In that period, he was responsible for the deaths of at least 33 young men and boys, assaulting and torturing them before taking their lives.
Most were teenage runaways, and bringing them back to his house and giving them drinks. He would sort of trick them into handcuffing themselves.
When he was finally arrested in December of 1978, the remains of most of his victims were found in the crawl space beneath his house.
It's an ideal way to remember where his victims were. It's an ideal way of keeping control over those victims even after they've died.
Gacy was convicted of 33 murders and spent 14 years on death row, appealing his capital sentence. He was eventually executed by lethal injection on May 10, 1994. Due to a clog in the IV tube administering the chemicals, Gacy's execution took much longer and was reportedly more painful than expected.
Despite problems with one of the lethal injection tubes, witnesses say Gacy took a deep breath and died a peaceful death in 18 minutes. Dave Hockmeister arrested Gacy in 1978.
Do you see a finality here?
Yeah, I think that's it. To tell you the truth, I don't know. I was real angry with the whole situation, and I think this is just the conclusion.
Eileen Warnos.
She's been called the damsel of death and the hooker from hell.
While making a living as a sex worker in Florida, Eileen Warnos shot and killed 7 of her clients. Warnos confessed to the murders, claiming that the men had either assaulted her or were in the process of doing so when she killed them in self-defense.
The idea of a woman killing men, a man-hating lesbian prostitute who tarnished the reputation of all her victims, brought Eileen Warnos a special kind of hatred.
She was brought up on 6 charges of first-degree murder and handed a death sentence for each of them. Following a lengthy appeal process, Warnos petitioned the Florida Supreme Court in 2001 and waived her rights to any further appeals. She was administered a lethal dose of chemicals on October 9, 2002.
Her reactions were a typical Eileen. She was verbal.
She was discussing something about the mothership's ready to blast off, that she would be back again one day, and here we go.
Wuornos' tumultuous life of crimes and trial was dramatized the very next year in the biopic Monster.
Everything happens for a reason. Where there's life, there's hope. Oh, they gotta tell you something.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Ted Bundy. One of the most notorious serial killers in American history, Ted Bundy reigned terror on young women in several states before his final arrest in 1978.
Since his original capture in 1976, Bundy had become a media sensation.
I'll plead not guilty right now.
Bundy was tried twice in Florida for the murders of 3 women and the assault of 2 others. He was found guilty of all the charges and handed 3 death sentences for the crimes.
He was sharp. You couldn't put anything over on him. He liked to play games where he'd make us look like fools, like he was dealing with inferiors. Just simple, low-life, country bumpkin deputies.
Bundy exhausted all potential appeals in 1988, after which he confessed to 30 murders, although investigators believe that number to be higher. On January 24, 1989, hundreds gathered outside the prison and millions watched in their homes as Bundy was strapped to the electric chair at Florida State Prison and executed.
For the man who murdered dozens of women, the irony of the final act of justice is that it may have been carried out by a female executioner, hidden from Bundy and others by a black hood.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.